Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Inside Man United. My name is Rowan Brennan. Thank you very much for joining me. No green screen today, just some lighting issues, and just wanted to get this episode up and out. So didn't want to spend too much time trying to sort out the green screen, but hopefully the background is still okay. Today's episode, just a review of the match last night. Great to be back in the Champions League against one of the favourites to win the competition in Bayern Munich, and great to hear that Champions League music and United walking back out onto the pitch. Lots to get into. The goals, the defending, the decisions. What a game. 3 positives, 3 negatives. Let's get into it. So a interesting maiden Champions League game for Manchester United against Bayern Munich. And first thing I will say is don't let the scoreline fool you. 4-3 makes it look like a much more closely contested game than it actually was in reality. That Bayern Munich team, for about a 20-minute period before they started making substitutions, were toying with United. We fell asleep. We weren't tracking back. And it's not a fair reflection of the game. Listen, there were times yesterday, and I've looked at so many reviews of the game of yesterday from different channels and different accounts that I like and respect. And anyone that I kind of generally give credence to their opinion was of the same thinking, that this was not as closely contested as we thought it may have appeared. 4-3 was a very flattering scoreline for this United team. For a 20-minute period, they toyed with us in midfield. They made some substitutions. At 3-1 with, just under 20 minutes to go, Bayern basically took their foot off the gas. And it was a mistake because we did get back into the game. But had that been a game that was 2-2, or if we were 2-1 ahead, or if Bayern were even 3-2 ahead by just a goal, if they didn't have a 2-goal cushion, they were not going to be making the substitutions that they made. Kane wouldn't come off. Musiala wouldn't come off. United benefited from a little bit of arrogance from Bayern Munich. Their crowd was incredible. The chants were non-stop. The play from Bayern Munich was very strong. United were defensively inept. And that score of 4-3 did not reflect what that night actually showed. They hit the bar twice. They could have scored more. You could say, okay, well, one of their goals was an Onana mistake that shouldn't have gone in. Agreed. Onana messed up. Another one of their goals was a dodgy penalty. And it was a dodgy penalty. It was, the rules are different in the league than they are in the Champions League, which is very irritating. And it should never have been a penalty. Some people think it should have. United fans listen, it hit his hand. It's a penalty. He kicked it at his hand, and his hand was naturally out to give himself balance. And you could see immediately he tries to retract it. But listen, the penalty was given. So, you take those 2 goals out of the equation, then Bayern still scored 2. They hit the post twice. They had 10 more chances on goal than us, and they made substitutions with 20 minutes to go. They would never have made had they not had a 2-goal cushion. The fact is, Onana did mess up, and we did concede a penalty. So we did concede 4 goals. That's the reality. And we were lucky to only concede 4 goals. And we scored 3, and it was good to see that we did, and that'll be one of the positives that I'll speak to later on. But don't let that scoreline fool you. It could have been worse. It wasn't close. Had it not been for Onana and a dodgy penalty, we would have won that game or got a draw. I don't think we were ever going to win that game. We were reactive in everything. We kept ourselves in the game. We never looked like taking anything from it. That's the reality. So first negative that I'd like to speak about is don't let that scoreline fool you. And don't. There's still an awful lot of work for United to do. But there are positives in the scoreline, which I will touch on later. So first negative, don't believe that scoreline. That performance was not as convincing and was not as closely contested as you may have thought. Second up on the list is defensively frail. United built their season last season on being defensively strong. Now, you might laugh at that because we got absolutely bent over. by City and Liverpool last year, and conceded a huge amount of goals in some games. But there was a lot of smash and grabs and a lot of very strong defensive performances from United last season. I mean, De Gea won a Golden Gloves, but it was down to a very strong defense. Shaw was excellent. Wan-Bissaka was starting to come back into form. Dalot was, competing with Wan-Bissaka for that right-hand space. Varane stayed fit. Martinez was a revelation. United didn't concede in many games last season, and we won a lot of games 1-0. We didn't score a lot last season. We didn't create a lot. And we built a reasonably decent league campaign off the back of a strong defense. This season, we're still not scoring goals, but we're also conceding at the back massively compared to last year. Like, we look at Rashford and he was scoring lots of goals. He was the only guy scoring goals. We didn't create that many chances. We didn't have a lot of goals. Sancho contributed nothing. Weghorst contributed nothing. Bruno had a reasonably quiet season on the goal front than he has in previous seasons. Most of our goals came from Marcus. That's just the way it went. And United's defensive frailties now are really starting to make our campaign fall apart, because we're not scoring more on the other end. We did in the Forest game. Went 2-0 down, we managed to snatch 3 goals. Great. We still went 2-0 down within 4 minutes at home to Forest. We made a Wolves team who has looked distinctly average since that first United game. We made them look like, title contenders in that game. Like pundits saying, can't believe how good this team look. Defensively, we're very poor. Now, you can say we've got injuries, fine, but we've had to deal with those injuries and we haven't been able to. Dalot is kind of a starter. He's been in and out of the team with Wan-Bissaka, but at one stage he was the starting right back. I mean, Dalot is not, some very inexperienced player who we've come to rely upon. He's been at the club years now, and he played well against Arsenal on the left, but on the right he wasn't great last night. Martinez didn't look great. Lindelof is poor. He is a poor defender, and he doesn't play well beside Martinez. He plays better beside Martinez than he did beside Maguire, because they're both clowns. Lindelof did not play well yesterday. And Reguilon is actually one of the shining lights. Defensively, still has some work to do, but in attack, he created a lot yesterday. And I'm excited for what that kid can do. And I personally would send out Malacia on loan once he's back fit, and I'd have Reguilon as the backup to Shaw, and just about as a backup to Shaw. If Shaw doesn't start picking up where he left off last season, Shaw would be dropped as well. And to be honest, with Varane's consistent injury worries, he's a bit of a Rolls-Royce player. I think we should only be bringing him out for the very important games. I would be putting Shaw in at centre-back with Martinez, and I would have Reguilon in as the starting left-back once Shaw is back from injury, because I would prefer to have Shaw in as the fullback, as the centre-back instead of Lindelof. United's defence is really, really poor. And Onana, we've conceded 10 goals in our last 3 games. That's, the first time, I think, since the late 70s where we've conceded more than 3 goals in 3 games in a row. It's very, very worrying form. And Onana, it will not have helped Onana's confidence to do what he did last night. And he says, we've lost the game because of me. It wasn't just because of him. The defence was poor last night. It was very, very poor. And we had to rely on our defensive midfielder to bail us out with 2 goals. Now, Casemiro's been very good going forward, but he was left isolated again last night because Eriksen is not a number 8. Eriksen is not a number 8. When I saw Eriksen in the team sheet again, you just scratch your head. Now, I know where Ten Hag is with regards what to do with that midfield. I'd prefer to have Eriksen on the pitch, maybe getting us a goal, than McTominay on the pitch doing nothing. McTominay, yet again, was so poor last night. And to be honest, that's United's fault, not McTominay. It's hard to be in a team and trying when you know the manager doesn't want you and the club doesn't want you and they're actively trying to get rid of you. Why would you give a shit? Why would you care? Oh, well, he's a United guy and, you got to play for the team and put himself in the shop window. They're human beings at the end of the day. McTominay knows he's not wanted. Maguire knows he's not wanted. And it's a case of I prefer to have Eriksen as a bad number 8 than McTominay coming in as a worse number 8. Now, I wanted McTominay to start just because I think he's more defensively minded than Eriksen, but Eriksen leaves gaps all over the pitch. Eriksen's a number 10. He should be there as backup to Casemiro, or sorry, to Fernandes. He's back up to Fernandes. Give Fernandes a break every now and again and put Eriksen up there as a number 10, or take Fernandes off for the final 15 minutes just to give him some rest. Those 15 minutes add up over the course of a season, and he's an important player for us when we need him. And keep Eriksen fresh and fit and give him 15, 20 minutes. I would play Eriksen when we're going into games knowing we're going to have a lot of possession, because he likes to play facing the opponent's goal. He does not like to play facing our own goal. He's not defensively minded. He doesn't think like that. He's a number 10. He's a number 10. Okay? You wouldn't ask De Bruyne to be a number 8. You wouldn't ask Hazard to be a number 8. It's just not what he does. And it's down to a lack of personnel that Ten Hag has him there. And I understand that. When Amrabat is back, Eriksen's back on the bench and McTominay's not going to get a sniff. And the sooner Amrabat comes back, the better. So United's defensive frailty, it's the concentration as well. So often when we score, within minutes of scoring, within minutes of kickoff, we concede. Within minutes of scoring, we concede. Within minutes of conceding a goal, we'll concede another goal. We seem to have these windows from a kickoff as well, where we just completely switch off. We have these kind of 10, 15, 20-minute periods within games where we just forget how to defend and how to play and forget we're actually in a match. And it absolutely ruins our game, because 10, 15 minutes, 2 minutes of lapsed concentration will ruin a game for you. United don't seem to be able to stay switched on for a full 90 minutes or 100 minutes. So defensive frailties getting us once again, and I think it's abundantly clear that Ten Hag will try and get more defensive reinforcements in January. And again, it speaks to the ownership. There's a reason why we had to sign Johnny Evans on a free, because our ownership doesn't allow for us to get the very best anymore. Benjamin Pavard was quoted as saying he wanted to move. He was waiting to get the move to United. He didn't want to go to Inter as much as he wanted to go to United. We couldn't get him. Same with Kane. Jean-Claire Todibo saying, oh yeah, I wanted to stay at Nice. I never wanted to go to United. He has to say that because he's still at Nice. He can't continue playing for the club going, yeah, I wanted out, but I wasn't able to get out. So, here I am. So he's saying all the stuff he needs to say. Of course he wanted to go to United from Nice. Of course he did. And we couldn't get him because we're a badly run club that's not able to get rid of poor players that we also recruited and are grossly overpaid, that we can't shift, and we can't get in the right reinforcements. Our transfer strategy continues to stymie every manager that we have. So, defensive frailties, second negative from this game. The third negative, and something that's of great concern to many United fans, is Marcus Rashford. He is our Rolls Royce player, the star man, the youth product, Mr. Manchester United. And he's in his 9th season, amazingly. One more season and this guy can get a testimonial. He's been at the club a long time. And Rashford causes some problems. He has kind of won over fans due to his exploits last year. 30 goals he scored. He did. He had a good season last season. 30 goals was the main focal point in a team that didn't have many focal points last year. And he took the burden of goal scoring on his shoulders very well, and he had a great season. That does not a world-class player make. I mean, Kevin Phillips and James Beattie, for those who may not remember, these are guys back in the 90s who had absolutely barn burner seasons for Sunderland. And I don't know who James Beattie did it with. Might have been Sunderland as well. These guys scored 30 goals in the league. Just in the league. And they were never heard of again. They were kind of middling Premier League strikers, but they just got real hot for a season. And were they ever considered world-class players? No. Marcus Rashford is not a world-class player. He can play like a world-class player on occasion, but world-class players do it consistently, season after season after season after season. That is what world-class is. The word world-class is bandied around a little bit too much these days to describe players that people like. Now, Marcus has his fanboys, and I can see why they like him. I've always had an issue with Marcus Rashford. I like the guy. I think he's a good kid, and I like him as a player at United. But To me, he should be like Luis Diaz or Jack Grealish, a good player in a good team, but he shouldn't be your shiny thing. He shouldn't be the main jewel in your crown because he simply isn't good enough to have that title. Every major team has a absolute titan in them, in their ranks. Where whether you're Liverpool with Salah, who you're guaranteed 30 goals a season in the league alone. Harry Kane, same thing. With Chelsea, they had Eden Hazard. And then, Arsenal had 15 goals from Martinelli, 15 goals from Odegaard, and 13 goals from Saka. They 43 goals across those three players. They were only two off Marcus. I've got some kind of information here on Marcus Rashford. So he's in his 9th season now at United, okay? His first season, 11 appearances, 5 goals, 1 and 2. Wow, what a conversion rate. That looks great. That would get you about 18 to 20 goals a season if you're able to keep up that form, given a 38, game season. Next season, 32 games, 5 goals. Next season, 35 games, 7 goals. Next season, 33 games, 10 goals. A very poor return. Now, you can say the team wasn't playing well, etc., etc. Ibrahimovic was the striker. This guy was the striker. Marcus was on the left. Marcus was on the right. I don't care. These are his goals returns, okay? 31 games in the 19-20 season, 17 goals. Fantastic. Brilliant. 2021, 37 games, 11 goals. 2021-22, 25 games, 4 goals. And last year, of course, 35 games, 17 goals. And then this season, he's got 5 games, 1 goal. Okay. So if we take his major seasons, okay, let's take the first season away. You might say, oh, that's his 1 and 2 season. It's going to suit your argument to take him away. It was only 5 goals, so it's not going to skew the statistics all that much. Okay. And his final season. Okay. So the middle chunk, okay, this is 7 seasons. Okay. He's played 228 games and scored 71 goals. That's an average of 1 goal every 3.35 games, which is an average of 12 goals a season. It's not bad, but it's not prolific. And in 2 seasons, he scored 34 goals, okay? That's almost half his goals across 7 seasons in 2 seasons. 2 seasons, he scored almost half his goals. That shows wild inconsistency. This is not a player you can rely upon to have 2-3 good seasons in a row. He is in 9. This is 9th season. Okay, so in 8 seasons prior to this, he has not had a consistent run of form for 2 or 3 seasons. In the 18-19, 10 goals, 19-20, 17 goals, 20-21, 11 goals. So that's in 101 games, he had 38 goals. That's a decent return. That was 3 years ago. And he just does not have the consistency required. Now, we remember Ronaldo. He was derided left, right, and centre when he came back to United. And I was Ronaldo's biggest fan. And I've taken a step back from that given his conduct and behaviour in his final season. It still sticks in my craw, and I find it very hard to forgive him for what he did. I found it wildly unprofessional. But he was derided, despite scoring 18 goals in his season as a 37-year-old. Derided for not tracking back, throwing his hands in the air, throwing a strop when things didn't go his way, not defending, and not kind of helping out the team and being a team player. That's Marcus Rashford. The guy doesn't track back. His performance last night against Munich was appalling, despite getting an assist for Højlund. And the weird thing is, at least he's listening to Ten Hag and providing the assist and not taking the shot, because he was lambasted for not doing that in the previous game and squaring it over to Højlund. The funny thing is that I actually thought he should have taken the shot last night. I thought it was bad decision making because he passed it into Højlund. Yes, Højlund scored. There was 3 players closing in on Højlund and Rashford had space. I actually thought he should have taken the shot. I thought, weirdly enough, I mean, yeah, you can never keep fans satisfied. But what it does show is that Marcus's decision making is poor. When he shoots, he passes. When he passes, he should shoot. Now, every now and again, he's going to have a season where every decision he makes works out. Players go through these spells where they just get hot and everything they do goes into the back of the net. It happens. James Beattie, Kevin Phillips. It happens. That happens for Marcus as well. But he's a head down merchant. He puts his head down, he runs, and he just takes a shot or he squares it into no one or makes a poor pass. Marcus Rashford is not the world-class player people think he is, and he has a lot to learn, but he's in his 9th season now. I mean, he should have learned what he needs to learn. And he's going to have to kind of pull his socks up with regards to his defensive work. And I think Marcus Rashford, I think he provides as many problems as he does answers. He's a young Manchester boy. People want to see him in the team. He never gets substituted despite playing awful in many games. And I think he's going to be a problem for Ten Hag, because if he drops him, it's going to be a media shitstorm. He needs to track back. He needs to stop throwing his hands in the air. He needs to muck in and track back, get back into our own half and help out with the defensive duties, particularly when you've got the likes of Reguilon and Shaw bombing up forward. He needs to start contributing more to the team, because when he's not scoring, he doesn't do a whole lot else. And he doesn't have many seasons where he's prolific. Marcus Rashford is going to pose a lot of problems in terms of the development of the likes of Garnacho. Sancho prefers to play in the left. That was not an option for Sancho once Marcus started finding form. I think Sancho was bought maybe with the idea of dropping Rashford. So bad was his form prior to his, performance last season. Most people at United most United fans were happy to sell Marcus Rashford after his performance before last season. I being one of them. I would happily have taken 70, 80 million from a club willing to take on Marcus Rashford, given how wildly inconsistent his form was and how poor his 2 seasons previous to that were. And he rescued himself with a good season, but it wasn't world-beating prolific. He had as many goals in all competitions as Kane scored in the league. He scored 2/3 of the goals in all competitions that Haaland did in the league. You can say, oh, well, they're exceptional players. He's our golden boy. He's the jewel in our crown. And he's scoring 50% of the goals of the jewels in other teams' crowns. We need more from him, both in terms of goals and defensive output and potential leadership. As one of the senior players in that team, he can't be seen to be throwing a strop and throwing his hands in the air and getting annoyed when things don't go his way. And he needs to track back. He's at a canter and jogging back when we lose possession. It's not good enough. And people, I think Marcus Rashford is in for a tough season this season. I think he's going to have one of his more quiet seasons after his breakout one, just like he did 4 years ago when he scored 17 goals. Then it just went down, down, down. So Marcus Rashford needs to take his thumb out of his ass and start performing properly, because otherwise he's just going to be taking up space. So they're the 3 negatives. Now on to more positive stuff. First positive from yesterday's game is a never say die attitude. United showed great resilience to be able to keep themselves in the game, and that's all they did. They never looked like they could win the game. I mean, when we got to 3-2, there was a chance, but in typical form, as soon as we got it to 2-1, within minutes it was 3-1. As soon as we got it to 3-2, within minutes it's 4-2. We never really gave ourselves a sustained amount of time to get in and win the game, but what we did do is give ourselves a chance. And we did that against Wolves, despite the fact we were being outplayed. We kept fighting till the end, got a goal. Went 2-0 down very, very quickly, again, because of our defensive weaknesses and lack of concentration. And we got 3 goals back. I don't care who you're playing in the Premier League. You go 2 goals down and you need 3 goals. That takes a level of mental fortitude, application, and togetherness to be able to achieve that, to not let the heads drop, to not panic, and to allow yourselves get back in the game. To be 2-0 down from a goalkeeping mistake and then concede another goal 4 minutes later. Obviously, United have a propensity to let their heads drop and to lose concentration, but for very short amounts of time, which we get punished for regularly. But we have shown an ability to bounce back. And to go and get 3 goals against Bayern Munich is not easy to do. Few teams do that against Bayern Munich, particularly in the Champions League when they're up for it and playing as full a strength team as possible. You don't catch them on an off day when they're playing a weakened team because they think the opposition isn't up to it. This is Manchester United opening game Champions League at home, trying to maintain a record of not losing any group games in their last 34. It's a very impressive record. Bayern were up for this game, and so were United. And bar a couple of mistakes, United were very much in this game and gave a very good account of themselves in areas such as, some areas of attack. Some individuals played very, very well, but they kept their heads in the game and they allowed themselves a chance to try and grab something from this game. And they scored 3 goals. So there was a strong mentality there. So there is a mentality on which Ten Hag can build upon. We just have to try and redirect that kind of focus and that mental fortitude into defensive solidity, into 90 minutes concentration, and to stop giving ourselves these mountains to climb and try and make life a little bit easier for ourselves, like we did last year by not conceding goals. The amount of times we didn't concede goals last year is huge, and just took 1-0. 1-0. Now we're scoring kind of plenty of goals in some games. Obviously, we drew a blank against Spurs. Didn't do that well against Brighton, and we kept ourselves in it against Arsenal. So there is something on which to build upon. And when Ten Hag gets a full strength team, I'm excited to see what we can do, particularly with Amrabat to come in as that number 8 to help Casemiro to bring some steel and defensive minded characters into the middle of the pitch that also have an ability to play those forward passes. Amrabat's in the 99th percentile in Europe for progressive passing, both medium and long range. 99th percentile. This is an elite, forward-thinking, facing the opponent's goal midfielder who is absolutely tough as mahogany in being able to break up play and provide a defensive screen and to help out his midfield partner. I think United are going to be transformed under Amrabat. He's going to be our signing of the season, not Højlund. It's going to be Amrabat when he comes back. I think he's going to be incredible. And I think when you combine that mental fortitude that we had to come back into this game with returning players like Amrabat, someone like Mount, who I think will improve, I think there's a lot to be excited about and a lot to look forward to. Positive point number 2, Sergio Reguilon. I like this kid a lot. This is a really, really nice player. He was one of the few players yesterday that actually looked like he was trying to impress and play for the badge. This is a guy that knows that he's got a chance to play and prove a point at Manchester United and to get his career back on track. What was once a very promising career, originally owned by Real Madrid, he was given on loan to Sevilla back in the 18-19 season, I think, 4 years ago, and was rated the best left back in La Liga at the age of 22. And La Liga is a tier 1 league. Anyone that has tuned into this channel regularly will know that my thoughts on other leagues like the German league and the Dutch league and the Italian league, these are tier 2 and tier 3 leagues. A great player there does not necessarily translate to a great player in the Premiership or in La Liga. But you buy a shit hot player from La Liga, chances are they're going to be able to translate it into their form in the Premiership. Reguilon was on the road to stardom, and United were linked to him before he actually ended up moving to Tottenham. And he had a good first season at Tottenham, playing most of their games and linking up well. And Antonio Conte came in and just didn't fancy him for one reason or another, and Sessegnon got the start. Reguilon is a very attack-minded fullback. Now, you'd think that he would like an attack-minded fullback. The fact that Antonio Conte kind of had the 3-man defense, 3 central defenders with his 2 fullbacks bombing up the wing. He even had Victor Moses was a man reborn as the kind of right wing back at Chelsea under Antonio Conte. So he does appreciate a winger that can get forward, or a wing back. But for some reason, he just didn't fancy Reguilon. And Reguilon went on loan to Atletico. He picked up an injury at Atletico. I think he got sick as well. And he never really got himself back into the fray at Atletico Madrid, who are obviously a very defensive-minded team. And his strengths are in attack. When Onana made a mistake yesterday, Reguilon was the one to come over and put his arms around his chest and try and pick him up. He showed great leadership, great maturity, and he is playing like a man that cares and wants to impress his teammates, wants to provide all he can in attack and defense. People go, oh, he's great in attack, but he's not doing great in defense. He broke up some attacks yesterday from Bayern Munich and ran his bollocks into the ground, trying to track players back, running across the pitch, sliding in tackles, particularly in the 25th minute when Bayern Munich were bombing forward for an attack. He put in a great slide tackle to break up an attack. This is a player that I think could push Luke Shaw for a starting berth. And like I said earlier, if Shaw comes back and is fit and Varane is injured, Shaw goes to centre half and Reguilon plays left back, because Reguilon to me is exactly the kind of player that we need. He's strong in attack. He's creative. Now none of his attacks and crosses ended up going into the goal, but that was as much from players not getting forward quick enough, not getting into the right position. He is playing some really good balls into the box, and players just weren't getting onto the end of them. His attack is fantastic, and he was great in defence. So Reguilon, to me, is a real shining light. He did well in his last game for United, and he did well last night again, even despite the fact we shipped 4 goals. They weren't because of Reguilon. One was a bad penalty, one was because of Onana, one was because Lindelof, and one was because of Eriksen, if we want to get specific. Yet another goal conceded by an opposition player being unmarked within 1 yard of the penalty spot. We nearly conceded a goal like that against Forest. We did concede a goal like that against Arsenal. We did concede another goal like that against Bayern. We seem to not be defending our penalty spot in the box. Anyway, I digress. Reguilon is a real shining light, and he's a player I'm looking forward to seeing more and more of. And I hope he really stakes a claim to at least push Malacia to the side and maybe send him out on loan and have Reguilon as the backup left back. Malacia is one of Ten Hag's kind of boys from the Ajax days. He might have some favoritism towards Malacia, but I like the look of Reguilon. And it's a shame that our kind of 2 shining lights from last night's game were new recruits, but such is the way things are at United. So Reguilon, a real positive light, and I'm looking forward to seeing a lot more of him. Which leads me on to positive point number 3. Rasmus Højlund. This guy ran his arse into the ground last night and showed exactly what Ten Hag wants from his strikers. A striker that's able to come deep and collect the ball and not just concentrate on hanging on the shoulder of the last defender, waiting for a through ball, standing with his hands on his hips, waiting for us to regain possession, so then he can get the benefit of the hard work of the rest of the team. This is a guy that wants to help get the ball back and help develop the attacking play on which he can eventually get the end of, get on the end of. We saw it so many times in his footage from Atalanta, picking up the ball, spraying it out wide, running into those into the box, and receiving the ball from the wide player he gave it to. Basically, an elongated 1-2, and that's exactly why he's there. And he ran his arse into the ground. You could see him coming back, hanging around the top of the center circle, putting in tackles, trying to win the ball back, trying to set up play, and showing exactly the kind of tenacity and attitude that Ten Hag requires from every member of his squad, including the attack. And Marcus Rashford can take note from that. All the negativity you want to say about Anthony, and yes, his attacking output is poor, but one thing he does do is run his ass into the ground and comes back and tries to help out in defense. You'll regularly see Anthony in our own half, hanging around the corner of the box, trying to help out the fullback and starting out attacks, winning the ball back and stopping us from being overloaded on those flanks. And that's what Marcus Rashford needs to do. And Højlund is doing that. He's coming back and trying to bring an extra man into the midfield, trying to help us not get overloaded or to create an overload, providing options to help create attacks that he can eventually get on the end of. And it was great to see him score his maiden goal against a good Bayern Munich team in the Champions League away from home. That's huge. And it also means a lot to keep the British press and media at large off his back, like we saw with Darwin Núñez last year at Liverpool when he struggled for so long to get his maiden goal. And we've seen it with other strikers arriving in the league with teams that don't get as much press coverage. When's he going to score? When's he going to score? Oh my God, he hasn't scored yet. He cost so much money. Oh my God, he's a flop. He's a flop. He's a flop. And that just starts to get inside your head. He scored a goal, a very important goal, when we were under pressure, when we needed him most, against Bayern Munich in the Champions League away from home. That's going to get the press off his back. Now he's got a goal. Now, they might try and twist it and go, he hasn't scored in the league yet. When's his first league goal? The guy scored against Bayern Munich. This wasn't Apoel Nicosia or Young Boys or Sheriff FC in the Europa League at home. This was against Bayern away from home. This kid can do it on the biggest stage against the biggest opponents. He's proven that. Now we just need to see more of it. But a huge positive for our new 72 million young signing who is so eager to impress. And you can see that in every minute he's on that pitch wearing that badge. This is a kid that supported United growing up. He loves this club. He only wanted United. Same with Amrabat, by the way, which is why I'm looking forward to seeing him. Players who actually will bleed for this badge and not take it for granted. We've had a squad full of assholes for too long. And I see that we're slowly getting rid of those assholes with players that have a sense of responsibility and duty to one another. I think Sancho's next on the list to be fucked out, and I can't wait for that to happen. The likes of Lingard and Pogba and these kind of guys, Sancho, Cavani, because Cavani was kicking off as well. Now, he might have had reason because, Ronaldo came in and took his number and stuff like that, so maybe that's granted. But we've had too many people in this team moaning, going against the manager, creating cliques, causing trouble when they didn't get to play, not performing when they got opportunities, and causing strife in the dressing room. Ollie has come out and spoken about it. Other managers have come out and spoken about it. Ranić has been proven right. This club and team needs open heart surgery. And I think once Ten Hag gets to get rid of the players he wants to get rid of, we're going to see a very different United team with a very different attitude. And it starts with the likes of Onana. Despite his mistakes, he's got the right attitude. Martinez got the right attitude. Malacia has the right attitude. Bruno Fernandes, while he might throw his arms up, he busts his bollocks every game. He runs all over the pitch. He never gives up. He might make mistakes. He might throw his arms up. The best players in the world throw their arms up and make complaints. Look at Jordan Henderson. Look at Steven Gerrard. Look at other players in Manchester City. They do the exact same thing. It just gets focused on at United because he's a United player. Okay, Bruno Fernandes is a model example of how a United player should behave on the pitch in terms of effort and productivity. And anyone that's anti-Bruno can, that's your opinion, but I would confidently say you're wrong. We're starting to get the players in with the right attitude. Anthony runs his arse off. Højlund runs his arse off. Mount will do that. Amrabat will do that. Casemiro will do that. Varane's got the right winning mentality. Martinez has got the right winning mentality. Onana, that's the spine. There's not many assholes left in that squad, and we're nearly close to getting rid of the rest of them. And I'm delighted to see Højlund doing what he did. And hopefully it's a sign of things to come, and he starts banging in goals more and more and more. Once we get these flanks sorted out and the form of his other attacking players sorted out, and Amrabat spraying in those long balls, I think Højlund could have a very, very strong season. I'm hoping we see at least 10, 12, 13 goals from him. You might consider that low, but for a 20-year-old kid for his first season at one of the biggest clubs in the world, in the hardest league in the world, I'd be pretty happy if he banged in 12 or 13 goals this season with some contributions from other areas of the pitch. So very happy to see Rasmus Højlund get off the mark, and hopefully a sign of things to come. So what are your thoughts on the match last night? Leave your comments. What do you think of my opinions on Højlund, on Reguilon, on Rashford, on the defense? What do you think? Put stuff in the comments. I always want to know what people who look at my videos are thinking. Do they think I'm an idiot? Am I talking out my arse? Or is there some merit to what I'm saying? So get involved with the comments. Thank you very, very much for joining me today once again. A result last night that I don't think any of us expected. I think we all thought we were going to be beaten, but it was a very entertaining game for some right and some wrong reasons. But an absolute barn burner, and definitely the fixture of the week. And I think a lot of people are going to be talking about that game today. And I think it's a decent sign. And I think there were some positives that we can take into the match against Burnley. We're still quite depleted, but I think there was a lot of positives to take out of the game. Burnley is huge. It's more important than that Bayern game. And not only do we have to beat Burnley, but we have to put in a positive performance. We can't keep eking out victories despite playing poorly like we did against Forest and like we did against Wolves. It's an immensely important game for us to show that not only are we capable of getting 3 points, but we're capable of playing as a team and putting in good performances where teams now will arrive to play Man United and be afraid of what we'll do to them. Right now, we're back to where we were before Ten Hag took over, where teams know that they can get a result when they play against us, particularly with the injuries that we have. So we need to put Burnley to the sword on Saturday, 8 o'clock kickoff. And we need to beat them convincingly. And our season starts with Burnley. And I'll be doing some videos during the week in preparation for that game. Thank you very much once again for joining in. Please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe. Hit the notification as well, so you'll be alerted when new videos are coming out. I'll see you on the next one.